Welcome to Q&A with JP. Bub Coons here, our loving pastor, JP Jones, right there. Say hi to the folks.
Hey, folks.
There you go. All three. How many cameras are there? 1, 2, 3, and that one in the back. Hi, everybody. Q&A with JP. The subject of the day, the question of the day is, why does there seem to be so many differences in the gospel accounts?
Yeah. Well, you know, there is and there isn't, because you have the three Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, which are known as the Synoptic Gospels. And that basically means they present a synopsis of the life of Jesus, teaching of Jesus. They're actually very similar. Then you have the Gospel of John, which about 90% that's in John isn't found in the other three Gospels. So when you read through even the synoptics, sometimes it'll be really close, but some of the words will be changed or some of the detail will be changed. Now, you know, you can dive into that at a whole lot of levels, right? And a lot of criticism, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but analysis has really been gone into to understand the Gospels. Sure. But I think the best way to understand that issue is you take four people that have the same life experience, and they're sitting around talking about it. There's going to be a common thread because they had the same life experience. But because each of them have their own personal experience, they might remember some of the details in a greater emphasis than the other person, because that was what really impressed them. So the gospel writers are just like normal people, right? So they're writing down what they heard, what they saw. They were eyewitnesses of the life of Jesus. They write this down, and in the three Matthew, Mark, Luke Synoptic Gospels, they kind of follow the same pattern or the chronological order. John has a whole nother idea going on. So they write what is the main story, but then Luke might remember, as he's getting his data and putting it together, oh, there was a crowd pressing in on Jesus. And so he says that, a crowd's pressing in on Jesus. One of the other writers just says there was a large crowd. So it's not contradictory, it's just a little different take on each thing. So when you put it all together, this is kind of the bottom line, what you have in the Gospels are the writers actually writing what actually happened. It's historically true. They're not making stuff up. Right. They're not even making stuff up for a good spiritual outcome. Right. They're saying what actually happened. But they're also writing each gospel with a purpose in mind. So each of the gospel writers, I think it's fair to say, are theologians writing a theological analysis of Jesus based on real historical information. So you have a real history, but you also have a history that's emphasizing a storyline that each of the writers want to present. Right. I think the best way of understanding it, and this is above my pay grade, but scholars who delve into this talk about it, it's very consistent with ancient biographies. If you were to look at ancient biographies of figures that lived, hundreds, thousands of years ago, the gospel writers write the story of Jesus kind of in the same pattern as those biographers. It's true, it's actually happened, but they're focusing on data that's important to them and to the audience they're writing to. Right,
and as long as there's no contradictions, sometimes there's seemingly contradictions, like how many people did Mary see when she went, how many angels were there at the resurrection, what was above Jesus's head, but when you put it all together, again, they don't contradict each other, they add to it. And I think that's one of the things. I remember talking to J. Warner Wallace, the cold case homicide detective. He says that's what you want. Right. You want 5 or 6 different points of view on that thing, but then you gather it all together and it's more accurate. If you did anything else, it would be collusion. Yeah. Right. They go, wait a minute, you're saying everything word for word. You want those to be, and also if I like you said that we all have a worldview, or we have a what you call it, a theme or something that we're looking at. If I like blue boats, right, and I'm sitting there watching the crowd and I see 5 blue boats go back, I'm going to record the blue boats. So we're 4 blue boats behind Jesus. Right. If you don't like them and you like orange flowers, you're going to go, Jesus was standing in front of the orange flowers. Both are true.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, and that's what you really see. And it's interesting because this question is like applicable to me right now, because I'm reading through the Gospels and I'm reading what's called a harmony of the Gospel. So it looks at the chronology of Jesus, but it looks at each piece in each of the 4 Gospels and how they contribute to that. Right. So I will sit down and read a certain account in Matthew, then I'll read it in Luke, then I'll read it in Mark, then I'll read it in John. And it's like, oh, it's the same story, but there are just a few tweaks of details. But when you put them all together, it really, you see the richness of the
Absolutely.
life of Jesus and the teaching of Jesus, but you also do see, Mark had a focus, in what he was trying to write. We know that Mark wrote down the eyewitness account of Peter.
Right.
So, for instance, just today I was reading an account, and it has Jesus in a crowd of people, and he's healing people, and the crowd's pressing in on him. So in Matthew and Luke's account, it just says there's a large crowd of people.
Right.
But in Mark's account, and remember Mark wrote what Peter told
Right.
him, it says the large crowd caused Jesus to get into a boat and go out a little into the sea and speak from the boat. Well, that would be significant to Peter because he was a fisherman.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
it was
See,
like,
that's-
so he remembered, when that happened, Jesus got in the boat. To the other guys, they just said there was a large crowd of people he's talking to.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
it's not a detail that really affects doctrine, theology, the gospel, but it's a detail that was significant to the writer. So you find a harmony of information, but you also find some different details that you put together to get the total picture.
Yeah. So let's go to another. This is on the same subject, but it's a little different. If God breathed these words into these human beings, why isn't it exact?
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, then I think you have to get back to intentionality.
Okay.
Because, let's start with the assumption there's a God,
Yep.
and the nature of God is he can do whatever he wants to do, however he wants to do it.
Sure.
So if God wanted the writers to write the exact same message,
he would've.
was he able to make that happen? Of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah.
But he didn't do that.
Yeah.
So that leads me to the conclusion that that wasn't God's intention in the first place.
Right.
There's actually a design for a full agreement on the things that really matter,
Yep.
and then some nuances and differences of the details that would be significant to each individual. And I think that, again, goes back to the purpose of each gospel writer. They are writing a history of Jesus.
Right.
They are writing the teaching of Jesus. They're writing a gospel of Jesus. But there's also an audience in mind and a bigger theme. So take John's gospel, for example. John tells us what that theme is. At the end of John's gospel, he says, there's many things that Jesus did. If I put them all together, the books couldn't even contain them.
Right.
These things I have written that you might believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that believing you may have life in his name. So John put the things in his gospel that would purposefully lead people to believe in Jesus as the Son of God and therefore have eternal life. So if there were many things that John observed as an eyewitness that were true and important, but he said that doesn't really lead people to come to believe in Jesus as Son of God, it didn't make the cut. The stuff that did lead people to believe in Jesus as Son of God, that's what he put in there. So that's why there's information in John that isn't in the other Gospels, because the other Gospel writers, while they're writing the true story of Jesus, they've got a different intention with a different audience. Matthew is writing to a Jewish audience, has the most quotations of Hebrew scriptures, the most description of Jewish customs, because he's writing to Hebrew people who were followers of the Jewish religion. And Mark and Luke have the same idea. They've got a focus behind them. So there is a basic gospel outline. That's kind of a chronology that Matthew, Mark, and Luke follow. And yet there's some little differences of details because they're writing with a different purpose.
I think the important thing to take home as you've studied this for multiple years, decades, is that these are accurate historical descriptions of what actually happened. That becomes the gospel itself. The good news is this actually happened, recorded by people that wanted the world to know what happened, just like ancient biographers were. And to me, that solidifies it. I mean, everyone can take their own time to look this stuff up and study it. And like your bold claim would always be, give it a shot.
Oh yeah.
Right, go read it, and you most of the time, where do they end up?
Well, that's the thing. It's a 21-day challenge. If you've never read anything about Jesus, read it for yourself. I'd always say that. Don't just take my word for it. Read the Gospel of John, because John has this purpose to present Jesus as the Son of God and lead people to believe. There's 21 chapters. Take a chapter a day. Just read it for yourself and just think to yourself, what is this telling me about Jesus? And does that resonate with truth? Just read that. Read it every day for 21 days. What does this tell me about Jesus? And does this resonate as true? And at the end of that 21 days, you'll either come to believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, or you'll say, well, that's what John is saying, but I don't accept it. Or you won't even last the 21-day period, right?
Right. I don't believe the first word. I can't even go there.
I can't even go there. But at least you check it out for yourself.
Which is the important thing. I think that's great. Thanks for that answer. We'll see you guys next time on Q&A with JP. Have a great day. God bless.